The verdict was already written before anyone opened their mouth. You could feel it tightening around the room like a wire pulling slow, waiting to snap. 12 men sat stiff in their box, eyes forward, hands folded, pretending they weren't already done. Across from them, the city held its breath. The judge leaned back, comfortable, too comfortable. That's how you know a trap is sprung. I sat at the defense table, hands calm, suit pressed sharp enough to cut glass. Midnight blue, Italian stitch. Not for vanity, for posture, for message. A man who expects to walk out doesn't dress like he's begging. The room didn't smell like justice. It smelled like fear and old decisions. No air moved. The fans just pushed hot air in circles, spreading sweat and nerves evenly. Reporters packed the left side, pencils twitching like they were itching to stab paper. On the right, the city's chosen sons, politicians, donors, men who never waited in line for anything, sat up front where they could be seen. Behind them stood Harlem, quiet, watching, measuring. They didn't come to hear the law. They came to see if the law was finally going to try killing its own problem. The judge cleared his throat, slow, deliberate, a man savoring his meal before cutting into it. He wanted me here. I knew that long before the cuffs ever clicked. Men like him don't stumble into power plays, they arrange them. Pressure gets applied in back rooms. Phone calls get returned faster than they should. Charges appear that don't quite stand on their own but don't have to, not in his house. This wasn't a courtroom to him, it was a stage. He believed in order the way a butcher believes in knives. The jury stood, sat, didn't look at me, no need to. They weren't here to decide anything. They were here to confirm it. Guilty. The word hit the room soft like a pillow pressed over a face. No drama, no pause, just finality. Somewhere behind me, someone inhaled sharp. Somewhere else, a fist clenched. I didn't turn around. You don't look back when the door behind you is already locked. The judge nodded, pleased but not surprised. He shuffled papers that didn't matter, bought himself a few seconds to enjoy the silence. This was his favorite part. The moment after the fall, before the body hits the ground. He looked down at me like a man inspecting something he already owned. Stand. I rose easy, buttoned my jacket, met his eyes. That bothered him. It wasn't supposed to. He wanted shaking, wanted slumped shoulders, wanted a man suddenly realizing the game was bigger than him. Instead, he got still water. Before I sentence, he said, voice full and practiced, the court will allow you to speak. Allow, like oxygen. I scanned the room without moving my head. Harlem first. Fear mixed with something harder. Anger that hadn't decided what to do yet. Then the prosecutors, tight smiles barely hiding hunger. The press leaned in, starving for a quote they could sell without understanding. Finally, I looked back up at the bench. There's nothing I could say here that would survive translation, I told him. Quiet, clean. A few reporters froze mid-scratch. The judge smiled thin. He mistook calm for surrender. Oh, I understand plenty, he said. I understand men like you. There it was, the speech. He leaned forward, elbows on polished wood, enjoying the sound of his own authority. You've spent years confusing intimidation with leadership, he continued. You dress it up. You call it business, community, but strip away the suit and you're exactly what you've always been. The room tightened. Even the prosecutor looked uneasy now. This wasn't law anymore. This was personal. You think money makes you equal, the judge went on. That walking into places you weren't meant to be buys you dignity. He shook his head slowly. Pity rehearsed. Money doesn't civilize men like you. It only gives you better tools. I didn't move, didn't blink. Inside, I counted. Men like him talk when they feel safe. Men like him confess without knowing it. You are a disease, he said, louder now. And the law is the cure. You've laughed at this city long enough. Today, the laughter ends. He lifted the gavel, held it there just a second too long. Power likes to be admired. Ellsworth Johnson, he announced, voice echoing, this court sentences you to the maximum penalty permitted under federal statute. The room leaned forward as one. 40 years. A ripple ran through the back. Someone cried out, another voice cursed. The judge slammed the gavel, cracking sound sharp as a gunshot. Order. 40 years, a number meant to bury. He sat back, chest rising fast, eyes locked on me, waiting, watching for collapse. Instead, I smiled, not wide, not loud, just enough. Confusion flickered across his face. Then I laughed, low, slow, from the chest, the kind of laugh you don't practice. The judge stiffened. This wasn't in his script. Is something amusing? He snapped. You've just been sentenced to die in a cell. I dabbed my eye with a handkerchief, neat as a man leaving a restaurant. I heard you, I said, every word. He leaned forward again, anger cracking through the polish. Then explain this performance. I looked at him, really looked this time. You made one mistake, I said calmly. You thought this was the end of the conversation. His face darkened. Be very careful. Oh, I am, I replied. That's why I'm still standing. A murmur spread. The bailiffs shifted. The judge gripped the edge of the bench like it might move. You think this court can't break you? He barked. I leaned in just enough for him to hear. You think you're the only one who knows how to apply pressure. Silence slammed down hard. Somewhere in the back of the room, a man in a gray suit stood up slowly, holding something flat and heavy under his arm. The judge followed my gaze. For the first time that day, uncertainty crept into his eyes, and just like that, the balance in the room shifted. Not loudly, not violently, but enough that everyone felt it. Because when a man smiles after being sentenced to 40 years, someone else just lost more than their freedom. The judge tried to recover fast. Men like him always do. Authority is a habit. Even when it starts slipping, they reach for it out of reflex. Bailiff, he said sharp, remove the defendant. Nobody moved. That's when he noticed it, the pause, the hesitation, the way the room stopped following his rhythm. I turned just enough so he could see the man standing behind the last row. Gray suit, plain tie, ordinary face. The kind of man you forget the second you look away, unless you know what he's holding. You don't want to rush this, I said. You rushed enough already. The judge's fingers tightened on the bench. His confidence didn't vanish. It cracked. There's a difference. Confidence disappears. Cracks mean pressure from the inside. You will not speak again, he said. You will not threaten this court. No threats, I replied, just timing. I nodded once. My lawyer stood, hands shaking. Poor man hated surprises. He reached into his briefcase like it might bite him and pulled out a thick envelope, heavy, sealed. The kind of weight paper only gets when it carries sins. The judge frowned. Sit down. The evidentiary phase is closed. That's not for the trial, I said. That's for you. He laughed, short and forced. You think a stunt saves you? I stood, took 2 steps forward. The bailiffs moved, hands hovering near leather, waiting for permission they suddenly weren't sure they had. I stopped at the rail. You've already sentenced me, I said, so what's the harm in listening? I slid the envelope across the polished wood. It landed between us with a dull, final sound. The judge stared at it like it might explode. I will not. If you don't open it, I cut in, voice low now. The copy in the back row leaves first. 1 stop at a newspaper office. 1 stop at a federal building, in that order. His eyes snapped up, locked onto the man in gray, then to the press, then back to me. You're bluffing. I smiled again, smaller this time. You built your career on men who couldn't prove things, I said. I built mine on making sure they could. The room felt tighter, hotter. Even the fans sounded nervous. Slowly, reluctantly, he reached for the envelope. His hands shook when he broke the seal. The first thing he saw drained the color from his face. A photograph, grainy, black and white. Him at a small table in a back room that wasn't supposed to exist. A briefcase open between him and a man he'd sworn under oath he'd never met. Cash stacked neat, respectfully. The judge swallowed. He flipped the page too fast. That was panic. Men rush when they're trying to outrun recognition. Bank records, dates, amounts. Numbers that matched calendars only a guilty man remembers. His mouth opened, closed. The courtroom leaned forward. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You called me an animal, I said. Said I wore civilization like a costume. Meanwhile, you were renting your robe out by the hour. The prosecutor stood. This is outrageous. The judge didn't acknowledge him. Couldn't, he was busy drowning. You took money to make problems disappear, I continued. You called it discretion, I call it rent. The gavel slipped from his fingers and hit the bench with a hollow knock. Not a command, a surrender, that sound carried. The man in gray shifted his weight. The double doors at the back of the courtroom opened. Hard. 4 men stepped in, coats still on, badges already out. No hesitation, no announcement needed, but they gave one anyway. Federal agents, the lead voice said. Nobody move. Chaos erupted, flashbulbs, shouts, chairs scraping. Harlem found its voice all at once. The agents walked past me like I wasn't there, straight to the bench. Sir, one of them said, calm as a ledger, please step down. The judge stared at him, eyes wild. You don't understand. Oh, we understand, the agent replied. Steel cuffs came out. The sound they made closing was louder than any gavel he'd ever held. As they led him down the steps, he passed me. Same level now, same air. I leaned in close enough that only he could hear. You wanted me caged, I said. Careful what you normalize. His eyes were wet, not with remorse, with fear. They took him away screaming about mistakes and misunderstandings, about men who'd protect him, about power that no longer answered the phone. The room watched history fold in on itself. My lawyer tugged my sleeve. We need to file. Mistrial, I said, immediately. He nodded too fast. I put my hat on, straightened it, walked down the aisle while the city parted without realizing it was bowing. Outside, cameras flashed, questions flew. I didn't stop. Because waiting at the bottom of those courthouse steps was a black sedan that didn't belong to the press, the police, or the government. And leaning against it was a man who owned silence in other languages. He watched me approach like a man deciding whether a problem could still be solved quietly. That's when I knew the courtroom wasn't the danger. It was what came next. The courthouse doors closed behind me like they were ashamed. Heat hit different outside. Not trapped, not stale. This was street heat. Honest, the kind that reminds you where power really lives. The black sedan waited at the curb, engine running low, patient. The man leaning against it didn't move when he saw me. Didn't have to. He flicked his cigarette into the gutter and watched it die. Made a lot of noise in there, he said. His voice was gravel and patience. A man who never rushed because the street always came back to him. I needed the room to hear me, I replied. He studied my face, not for anger, for arrogance. He didn't find either. That bothered him more. That judge, he said slowly, he was an investment. He forgot the terms, I answered. Investments carry risk. For a long moment, nobody reached for anything. That's how you know it's serious. Guns come out when conversations fail. This one was still deciding. You cost people money, he said. You put business on display. He came for me, I said. You know the rules. You reach for the crown, you don't get to complain when it cuts you. Behind him, his men shifted. Behind me, mine did too. Just enough movement to remind the sidewalk it wasn't neutral ground. He laughed once. Dry, short. You're dangerous, he said. Not loud, worse. I'm loyal, I replied, until someone tries to put a lock on me. He stared, then nodded toward the car. Enjoy your freedom, he said, but remember systems rebuild. He slid into the sedan. It rolled away clean, disappearing into traffic like it had never existed. I didn't watch it go long, because power doesn't celebrate in public. That night I walked into a place I wasn't invited to. Dark wood, heavy silence. Men who usually decided things with nods suddenly forgot how to breathe. Glasses paused halfway to lips. Conversations died mid-sentence. I moved like I owned the lease. The bartender knew better than to ask questions. He reached for a bottle that wasn't on the menu. One that had initials burned into the glass by a man who no longer needed them. I paid anyway. Respect isn't about money. It's about not stealing what you've already won. I lifted the glass. To timing, I said. That's when the door slammed open. A man stormed in wearing a badge and rage, both crooked from overuse. His hand hovered near his weapon like muscle memory. You think you won, he shouted. You just declared war. I didn't turn around. "I think you're standing too close," I said calmly. He froze. I took a sip. "There's another envelope," I continued. "Heavier than the first. Yours is inside it." The room went quiet again. Funeral quiet. He saw it then, not the envelope, the end. He left without slamming the door. Men only slam doors when they still believe they matter. Later, miles away, a former judge stood barefoot on cold concrete, asking strangers for protection he'd never offered anyone. The city woke up different the next morning. People walked taller, talked softer, smiled without knowing why. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee hot, paper open, headlines loud. Domestic peace wrapped around chaos like it always does when the balance shifts. "You worried?" she asked. I folded the paper. "Respect has been recalculated," I said. "That always makes people nervous." A phone rang in the other room, a message waiting, a request from a man who used to sit higher than everyone else. An apology, they said, a bargain maybe. I stood, grabbed my coat. "Where you going?" she asked. "Not to see him," I said. "Let him wait." Because when a man finally understands how long 40 years is, he learns patience the hard way, and patience has a way of breaking people who never practiced it. I didn't go see him. That part mattered more than anything I'd already done. Power isn't proven by showing up. It's proven by making people wait. The car rolled north, Harlem rising back into place like it always does, unbothered, observant, remembering everything. Storefronts knew me. Corners nodded without moving. Kids stopped bouncing balls just long enough to count the Cadillac's windows. They felt it before they understood it. The city had inhaled, but celebration never lasts long where money moves. Too many men lose something when balance changes. That night I sat on the terrace, lights low, drink untouched. Nat stood by the window, whispers near the door. Nobody talked, talking ruins listening. The phone rang once. Whispers answered, didn't say hello, didn't say goodbye, just listened, then covered the mouthpiece. "It's from downtown," he said. "Not cops, not Italians." That narrowed the world real fast. I took the phone. "Speak," I said. A pause, controlled breathing. A man choosing his words like he was walking through glass. "You embarrass people who don't get embarrassed," the voice said. "People who don't sit in courtrooms." "I didn't call you," I replied. "No," he agreed. "But now we're in the same sentence." I leaned back, let the silence work. Silence always works. "You shook the tree," he continued. "Things fell out we didn't know were ripe." "That sounds like your problem." A quiet exhale on the other end. Respect mixed with irritation. Dangerous combination. "You used law enforcement," he said. "That makes some people nervous." "I used gravity," I corrected. They were already falling. Another pause, longer this time. "There's talk," he said finally, "that you're getting too comfortable." I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "Comfort gets men killed," I said. "I stay alert." "You should," he replied, "because comfort looks a lot like opportunity from the outside." Click, the line went dead. Whispers watched me carefully. "Who was that?" "Someone counting," I said, and realizing the numbers changed. Nat shifted his weight. "Counting what?" "Time," I answered. I stood, walked to the window. Harlem breathed below us. Music from somewhere, laughter, life pretending it wasn't sitting on fault lines. "They're not done," Whispers said. "No," I agreed. "They're reorganizing." I picked up my hat, turned it slow in my hands. "When men lose judges," I said, "they start buying different tools." Outside, a car idled too long at the corner. Engine low, lights off, not lost. Waiting, I watched it without staring. "Tell everyone," I said. "No moves unless I say so. No celebrations, no extra noise." Nat nodded, Whispers already reaching for the phone. Because the kind of men I embarrass don't rush revenge. They refine it. And somewhere in the dark, someone was already deciding how much chaos it would take to remind Harlem that kings can bleed. The car at the corner disappeared before midnight. That didn't mean anything was over. It meant something had been confirmed. I slept light, always do when the city goes quiet too fast. Morning came gray and ordinary, which is how danger likes to dress. Coffee on the stove, paper on the table, headlines still chewing on yesterday like it wasn't done yet. A judge fallen, a system embarrassed. Too many men waking up short. Nat came in first. No rush in his walk, but his eyes were already working. 2 storefronts got visits last night, he said. Questions, friendly tone, not friendly meaning. Names, I asked, didn't give any. Of course not. Men don't announce themselves when they're mapping pressure points. Whispers followed him in, shutting the door careful. Union boys been sniffing around the docks again, asking who's been paying on time, asking who hasn't. I nodded. That was the play. Don't hit the king, shake the board, see what slides. They're testing loyalty, Whispers added, seeing who panics. Anyone panic? Not yet. Good, I said. Fear spreads faster than truth. I folded the paper and stood. Tell everyone to keep doing exactly what they've been doing. Same routes, same times, same envelopes. Nat frowned. That makes us predictable. No, I said, it makes us boring. Boring keeps predators hungry. The phone rang again. Different line this time, private. 1 ring only, I answered. You should have taken the apology, a voice said. Older, tired, not scared, but close. He had 40 years to practice it, I replied. A sigh. You humiliated powerful people. They humiliated themselves. Silence. Then, you don't always get to choose who responds. I don't need to, I said. I just need to know they will. The call ended without goodbye. I put the receiver down slow. They're not coming at me, I said to the room. Not first. Nat understood immediately. They're going after the idea of you. Exactly. That afternoon, a small thing happened. Too small for headlines, too quiet for sirens. One of our drivers got pulled over. Clean record, clean car, still lost his license. Temporary, they said, administrative. An hour later, a landlord raised rent on 3 buildings. Cash only now. No receipts. By evening, a supplier missed a delivery, claimed confusion, swore he got new instructions. None of it illegal enough to fight, all of it expensive enough to feel. That's how wars start, when bullets are bad for business. I stood on the terrace again that night, city glowing like it didn't know it was being negotiated over. They're patient, Whispers said. That worries me. It should, I replied. Patience means planning. I looked down at 125th Street, people still moving, still laughing, still trusting tomorrow. Someone out there thought they could remind Harlem who owned the levers. I adjusted my hat. They want to see how I react, I said. Whether I get loud, whether I make mistakes. Nat asked, and will you? I smiled, thin and certain. No, I said. I'm going to do something worse. The lights across the street flickered once, then steadied. Somewhere downtown, a meeting was already being scheduled. Neutral location, clean hands, smiling men. They thought they were tightening a noose. They hadn't realized yet. Who taught me? How to tie knots. The meeting came through a third voice. That's how you know it matters. No names, no threats, just a time and a place that pretended to be neutral. A diner that stayed open late because nobody wanted to admit why it stayed open late. I went alone. That wasn't courage, that was leverage. When I walked in, 3 men were already seated, spread out, coffee untouched. No one wanted jittery hands. They didn't look like killers. They looked like accountants who'd learned how to wait. One of them smiled, not friendly, careful. You've been expensive lately, he said. I slid into the booth without asking permission. So have mistakes, I replied. They exchanged looks. Silent communication. Men who trusted each other just enough to sit in the same room. You disrupted arrangements, another one said. Younger, hungry. Arrangements that kept things smooth. Smooth for who? I asked. Nobody answered that. The first man leaned forward. You embarrassed the wrong people. I stirred my coffee, didn't drink it. No, I said. I reminded the right people. A muscle jumped in his jaw. He didn't like that. We're not here to fight, he said. We're here to adjust. Adjustments cost, I replied. What are you offering? The youngest one smiled, thought he was clever. Protection, he said, from the pressure you're feeling. I finally looked at him. That pressure, I said calmly, is how I know you're nervous. Silence again, thicker this time. You think you're untouchable, the first man said. I think touch is expensive, I answered, and you're already over budget. That did it, he leaned back, recalculated. What do you want? He asked. I met his eyes. Everything stays where it is, I said. No more visits, no more whispers. Harlem stays out of your mouth. And if we say no? I smiled, not for them. Then tomorrow, I said, someone leaks a very specific ledger, the kind that doesn't hurt bosses, it hurts lieutenants. Wives start asking questions. Bankers stop returning calls. The youngest man's confidence cracked. You wouldn't. I already have, I said. I just haven't decided where it lands. Long silence. Finally, the first man nodded once, respect forced but real. We'll pull back, he said, for now. I stood. Good, I said, because next time I won't come alone. I walked out without shaking hands. Outside, the city felt lighter. That never lasts, because when men back down quietly, they start planning loudly in their heads, and somewhere between tonight and tomorrow, someone was going to decide. That patience had run out. Pulling back never means forgiving. It just means choosing a better angle. The next few days were quiet in a way that felt rehearsed, too clean, too respectful. Phones rang when they were supposed to. Deliveries showed up early. Licenses got returned with apologies that didn't reach the eyes. Harlem noticed. When the street notices silence, it listens harder. I didn't relax. I never do after a deal. Deals are just pauses where men sharpen knives they don't plan to show yet. On the third night, whispers came in late. Too late. He didn't sit. Someone asking about the ledger, he said. Not the one we waved around, the other one. I didn't respond right away. Who? I asked. That's the problem, he said. Nobody obvious, no muscle, no uniforms, just questions, clean ones. That made it worse. Where? I asked. Churches, social clubs, old-timers, people who don't lie well. I nodded slowly. Someone wasn't trying to scare us. They were trying to understand us. Understanding leads to precision. Anyone talk? I asked. Not yet. Good, I said, but they will eventually. Fear breaks fast. Curiosity breaks faster. That night the phone didn't ring. The window didn't rattle. No cars lingered too long. That's when I knew. They weren't coming at me through pressure anymore. They were coming through history. Someone wanted to know how I'd learned to move like this, who taught me, who I owed, who I still listened to. That's not law enforcement thinking. That's succession thinking. The next morning, I got word that an old associate, one who disappeared years ago, one who knew things that stayed buried, had been spotted back in the city. No message. No warning, just his name spoken softly. Men don't come back without a reason, and they don't get found unless someone wants them seen. I looked out over the street, calm on the surface, shifting underneath like a fault line. Get Nat, I said, and locked down every loose memory. Whispers hesitated. If he's back, that means. I know what it means, I said. It means someone decided I'm not the problem anymore. He swallowed. I'm the prize. And prizes don't get negotiated. They get taken. Somewhere in the city, a door was opening that should have stayed closed, and whatever walked through it was coming with a past sharp enough to cut the future. When a ghost walks back into your city, you don't chase it. You wait to see who follows. The name hit Harlem soft but fast, passed hand to hand like a bad dollar. Men lowered their voices when they said it. Others pretended they hadn't heard at all. That told me enough. He wasn't back for nostalgia. He was back because someone paid him to remember. Nat found him first. Not face to face. Pattern to pattern, old habits resurfacing. Same corners, same hours. Same taste in places where nobody asked questions because everyone already knew the answers. He's staying east, Nat said. Cheap hotel. Pays cash, doesn't talk much. That's not him, I replied. That's someone waiting. Whispers leaned against the wall, arms folded. If he talks. He won't, I said, not yet. Men like that don't sell information right away. They sell presence. Let rumors do the advertising. Let fear soften the buyer. That night I didn't send anyone to see him. Instead, I made sure he saw me. Cadillac slowed down Lennox. No rush. Windows clear. Same route I'd taken 1,000 times. Same posture, same calm. If he was watching, and he was, I wanted him to see that nothing had changed. Because the worst thing you can do to a man holding secrets is remind him how small they make him. The next move came before midnight. One of our clubs lost power, just hours. Block stayed lit. Music died mid-note. Silence rushed in. Accident, they said. I smiled when I heard. That wasn't pressure. That was a knock. Whispers looked at me. They're inviting a reaction. Then we do RSVP, I said. Instead, I made a call of my own. One that hadn't been used in years. One that only rang when things crossed a certain line. The voice on the other end was older now, slower, still sharp. He's back, I said. A pause, then a breath. Long. So they're ready to gamble, the voice replied. Looks that way. You want him quiet, the voice said. I want him honest, I corrected. Quiet comes after. Another pause, longer this time. That'll cost, he said. I looked out at Harlem, steady in the dark. Everything costs, I replied. Just depends who pays. When I hung up, I felt it. That shift in the air you only notice when you've survived long enough to recognize it. The game had changed shape. No more courts. No more paperwork. No more polite threats. This was personal memory being weaponized. And memory cuts deeper than guns. Somewhere across the city, a man with my past in his pocket was deciding who to sell it to first. And the only question left was whether he'd knock on my door, or whether I'd already be standing behind him. When he turned around, he didn't knock. Men who plan to knock want permission. This one wanted leverage. The call came just after dawn, not to me. To a place I'd built quiet on purpose. A back room nobody visited unless they already knew how to leave without being followed. Whispers took it. His face told me everything before he spoke. He wants a meeting, he said. Just you. I nodded once. Of course he did. Where? Old warehouse by the river, noon. Neutral ground. That's what people call places where nobody plans to be neutral. I went early. Didn't bring muscle, didn't bring heat, just a coat, a calm face, and the weight of knowing how stories end. He was already there when I walked in, sitting on a crate like time hadn't touched him, just bent around him. Older, leaner, eyes still sharp enough to remember too much. He smiled like he'd been practicing. Still walking like you own the floor, he said. Still talking like you want something, I replied. We didn't shake hands, that would have meant forgiveness. I didn't come back for trouble, he said. It found me. That's funny, I said. It says the same thing about you. He exhaled through his nose. Nervous habit, same as always. They know what you did downtown, he said. They know how you did it. They want to know who you learned it from. And you came back to teach? I asked. No, he said quickly. I came back to sell. There it was, honest at least. What price? I asked. He named a number that wasn't money. He wanted protection, a future, a place to stand when the dust finished settling. You always were good at seeing where the wind's going, he said. I just want to be standing next to you when it changes. I studied him, the lines in his face, the math behind his eyes. You already sold something, I said. His smile faltered just a hair. Not enough to hurt you, he said. Not yet. Yet is the loudest word in betrayal. I stepped closer, let him feel the quiet. You don't understand something, I said. The people you're talking to don't want information. He frowned. They want permission. Before he could ask what I meant, a sound echoed outside. Tires slow, multiple, not rushing, arriving. His eyes widened. You set me up. No, I said calmly. I predicted you. The doors creaked. Footsteps spread. Controlled, confident, too many for a conversation. He looked at me like a man realizing he'd stood on the wrong square 5 moves ago. They told me you'd deprotect me, he whispered. I met his eyes. I protect Harlem, I said, not men who auction its memory. The footsteps stopped just outside. Someone knocked once, hard, final, and in that moment, standing between my past and my future, I had to decide whether the ghost walked out alive or whether he finally stayed buried. Where secrets belong, I didn't answer the knock. You never rush the moment when the room finally tells the truth. The ghost stood up slow, hands half raised, like posture might still save him. His eyes kept jumping from the door to me, back and forth, searching for a version of this that ended better. They said this was just a conversation, he muttered. They always do, I said. That's how they get you to show up. Another knock, louder this time, no anger in it, confidence. The kind that comes from men who already believe the outcome is settled. The ghost swallowed. You can still fix this. I stepped past him, not toward the door, but toward the shadows along the wall. Let him wonder why. Fixing things is what got us here, I said. Now we're choosing. The door opened without waiting for permission. 3 men came in, clean coats, calm eyes, no rush. They didn't look at the ghost first. They looked at me. That told me everything. Mr. Johnson, the lead one said, respectful, careful, didn't expect to see you here. You should have, I replied. This is my problem. He smiled thin. That's what we're discussing. The ghost took a step back. Wrong move. The kind you make when you realize you're not part of the negotiation. He's the asset, the second man said, nodding at him. He knows things. So do I replied. Difference is I know when to stop talking. The lead man studied me, measured the space, counted exits, counted risks. We don't want trouble, he said. No, I agreed. You want control. Silence stretched. Outside, a boat horn sounded on the river, long, low, like a warning meant for someone else. The ghost's breathing got loud. Panic always makes noise. He already told you something, I said. The men didn't deny it. That makes him useless, I continued, and dangerous. The lead man glanced at the ghost, then back to me. You're asking us to walk away, he said. I'm offering you something better, I replied. You leave empty-handed and alive. The second man laughed quietly. You don't get to set terms. I stepped closer, just enough. I already did, I said. You just haven't caught up yet. The ghost finally understood. His face collapsed inward. He backed toward the wall like it might open for him. Bumpy, he started. I didn't look at him. Some doors, I said calmly, eyes still on the men, only open once. The lead man exhaled. Decision time, I could feel it settle, he nodded. Not at me, but at the ghost. 2 hands grabbed him fast, professional, no anger, just efficiency. He screamed my name as they dragged him toward the door. It didn't echo long, the door shut. Silence rushed back in, heavier than before. The lead man straightened his coat. We're square, he said. For now, I replied. He paused. You made the right choice. I smiled slow. There were no right choices, I said, only necessary ones. They left. I stood alone in the warehouse, the river moving outside like it always had, carrying things away without asking what they were worth. Somewhere in the city, a secret was being buried again. Not by me, but because of me. And that's when I knew the next problem wouldn't come from ghosts, or judges, or men who knock. It would come from someone who learned exactly how far I was willing to go. To protect my crown, and they wouldn't ask permission. The warehouse stayed quiet after they left, not peaceful, just emptied. I stood there a moment longer than I needed to, long enough to let the echo of his voice fade out of the walls, long enough to be sure nothing followed me back into my thoughts. That wasn't mercy. That was containment. When I stepped outside, the river looked the same, always moving, always pretending it hadn't carried worse things than men with regrets. The drive back was slow, intentional. I wanted anyone watching to see the same thing they always saw. No rush, no fear, no change in posture. Harlem welcomed me back without ceremony. That's how you know you belong somewhere. Nobody needs to announce it. But the city had shifted again. Subtle, like furniture moved in the dark. You don't notice until you reach for something and it's not where it used to be. Nat met me at the door, didn't ask questions, just handed me a folded note. One of the boys intercepted this, he said. Didn't come through our usual lines. I opened it, no name, no signature. Just a sentence written clean and confident. You solved today's problem, tomorrow's problem is watching. I folded it once, twice, put it in my pocket. They know, Whispers said from the corner. Yes, I replied, and now they're curious. Curiosity is worse than anger. Angry men make mistakes, curious men study. They're not testing strength anymore, Nat said. They're studying behavior. That means they're patient, I said, which means they think time favors them. I poured a drink, didn't touch it. When men believe time is on their side, I continued, they start planning legacies. Whispers frowned. You think this is bigger than retaliation? I finally looked at him. I think someone is deciding what Harlem looks like after me. Silence settled heavy. Outside, a siren wailed far off. Not close enough to matter, not far enough to ignore. They won't come at us loud, Nat said. Not after what happened. No, I agreed. They'll come clean, through money, through alliances, through men who smile first. I picked up my hat. That's fine, I said. I've always preferred quiet wars. The phone rang. Different tone, different weight. I answered, yes. A voice I hadn't heard in years spoke my name like it still had authority over it. We need to talk, the voice said, about what comes next. I didn't ask who it was. I'm listening, I said. When the call ended, I didn't move for a long time, because whatever was coming next wasn't about judges, or ghosts, or leverage. It was about succession. And somewhere in this city, someone had decided the crown didn't belong to one man forever. The question was simple: would they try to take it, or convince Harlem to hand it over without a fight? Succession doesn't announce itself. It tests the temperature first. The next week, nothing broke, no raids, no shortages, no sudden funerals dressed up as accidents. That's how I knew someone smart was involved. Smart people don't swing first. They rearrange chairs. They move influence one handshake at a time until the room feels different and nobody remembers when it changed. I felt it in the meetings. Men who used to wait for my nod started offering suggestions, not challenges. Suggestions, soft words wrapped around quiet ambition. Bankers returned calls a little slower. Union reps smiled longer than they listened. A few young guys, too clean, too confident, started showing up where they hadn't earned the right to be seen. Not hostile, just present. That's when Nat said it out loud. They're grooming. I didn't answer, because saying it gives it power. Later that night, Whispers came back from the street with a look I didn't like. The kind that means he wished he was wrong. They're saying your name less, he said. I finally looked up. And saying who's more. He hesitated. That hesitation cost him. One of ours, he said. Young, sharp, knows numbers, talks like the future. I leaned back in my chair. That's how it starts. Not with bullets, with compliments. Who's backing him? I asked. That's the thing, Whispers replied. Nobody obvious. But everybody's comfortable. Comfort is the most dangerous currency there is. I stood and walked to the window. Harlem still breathing, still alive, still trusting. They're not trying to remove me, I said. They're trying to replace the idea of me. Nat nodded slowly. So what's the move? I didn't answer right away. Because when the threat comes from inside, force is the wrong language. You don't crush seeds. You let them grow until they show what kind of tree they are. Invite him, I said finally. Both of them looked at me. To what? Whispers asked. To the table, I replied. Let him speak. Let him feel seen. Nat frowned. That's dangerous. So is ignoring him, I said. If he's the future they're betting on, I want to hear how he thinks. Silence. Outside, somewhere down the block, laughter spilled out of a bar. Young voices, hungry ones. I adjusted my cuffs. Set it up, I said. Private, no witnesses. And if he thinks this means he's ready, Whispers asked. I smiled, slow and knowing. Then he's about to learn, I said. That seeing the board and owning it are two very different things. Because kings don't fear successors, they fear impatience dressed as confidence. And tomorrow, I was going to sit across from the future and decide whether it walked out as an ally or a warning. He showed up early. That told me everything I needed to know before he ever spoke. Young men who arrive early think it signals respect. What it really signals is hunger. He sat straight, too straight. Suit tailored sharp but worn like armor, not comfort. Eyes alert, calculating, measuring the room like it owed him something. I let him wait. Not long, just enough to remind him whose time mattered. When I entered, he stood fast, quick smile, controlled, the kind men practice in mirrors. Appreciate you seeing me, he said. I appreciate honesty more, I replied, taking my seat. Let's see which one shows up first. He laughed softly, not relaxed, strategic. I hear you've been busy, he said. I hear you've been talking, I answered. There it was, first crack. His jaw tightened just for a second. People are nervous, he said carefully. They're wondering what comes next. So am I said. That's why you're here. He leaned forward, confident now, mistaking invitation for endorsement. The city's changing, he said. Old methods draw too much attention. New money wants cleaner hands, predictable leadership. Predictable, I let the word hang. You think I'm unpredictable? I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation was expensive. I think you're definitive, he said, and definitives don't always adapt. I smiled. That's what they tell you. He met my eyes, held them, credit where it's due. They say you built this, he said, but building isn't the same as maintaining. Now he was talking like someone who'd been coached. Who they? I asked. He shook his head. Doesn't matter. It always matters. I leaned back. Let the silence do what silence does best. Invite mistakes. You know what the problem with the future is? I asked. He waited. It's always convinced the past is tired, I continued, until it realizes the past already survived what the future's afraid to face. He shifted, first real movement. I'm not here to challenge you, he said. I'm here to help you transition. Transition. That word kills more empires than violence ever did. Tell me something, I said calmly. If I wasn't sitting here right now, would you be? His mouth opened, closed. He chose his words like they were stepping stones over deep water. No, he admitted, but eventually. I raised a hand, gentle, final. Eventually is where men like you get buried, I said. Not by me, by the people who told you you were ready. His confidence drained, just enough for fear to breathe. You think they're backing you, I continued, but you're just a test run, a temperature check. He swallowed. They like that you're clean, I said. They like that you smile. What they don't like is responsibility. He stood up slowly, respect and resentment fighting for position. So what happens now? He asked. I stood too, same height, same air. Now, I said, you walk out of here knowing something you didn't before. What's that? That the crown isn't passed, I said quietly. It's defended. I opened the door for him. As he walked out, he paused, didn't turn around. They won't stop, he said. I nodded. I know. After he left, I stayed standing for a long time, because now the danger had a face, a voice, a future with supporters who thought patience was weakness. And somewhere in the city, men were already debating whether waiting for me to fall was smarter than helping me get pushed. Either way, the next move wouldn't come from outside. It would come from someone who shook my hand and counted how long. They thought I had left. The room felt different after he left. Not quieter, emptier. That's the cost of clarity. Once you name the threat, the walls stop pretending they're neutral. I poured the drink I'd been avoiding and finally tasted it. Bitter, necessary. They're going to try him again, Whispers said, through someone else. Of course, I replied. They need to see how he behaves when he's disappointed. Nat leaned forward. If he folds. He won't, I said. Not yet. He still thinks patience is a weapon. Outside, a car passed slow. Too slow, didn't stop, didn't need to. They're mapping reactions, I continued. Who defends me, who stays quiet, who starts thinking. That night I made 3 visits. Not threats, not warnings, conversations. The kind that remind men why certain structures exist and who paid to build them. Some listened, some nodded too quickly. By morning, word came in from 2 corners I didn't expect. Men who'd stayed neutral for years suddenly wanted to talk, said they respected longevity, said they didn't like uncertainty. That's when I knew. The idea of my ending had become profitable. I stood at the window again, watching Harlem wake up. Same streets, same rhythm, different undercurrent. They think this is about age, Nat said. No, I replied. They think it's about replacement. I adjusted my coat, already knowing the shape of the day. They're going to force a moment, I said. Something public, something symbolic. Whispers stiffened, a challenge. An example, I corrected. Me or someone close enough to look like me. The phone rang. Once I answered without greeting. It's happening, the voice said, tight, controlled, scared. Where? I asked, a pause too long. East Side, he said. One of the young ones, they're making a point. I closed my eyes for half a second. That was the line. I put my hat on, slow and precise. Get the car, I said, and tell everyone to stay exactly where they are. Nat frowned. You're going alone. Yes, I replied, because this isn't about force. It's about authorship. As I stepped toward the door, I felt it settle. The city holding its breath again, waiting to see if the king still moved first or reacted last. Because if I handled this wrong, they wouldn't just question my power, they'd rewrite the rules. Right in front of Harlem, and the next move would decide whether this was a transition or the beginning of a war that didn't ask who it burned. The East Side was loud when I arrived, too loud. Crowds gather fast when they sense permission. Someone had leaked just enough fear to draw witnesses, just enough chaos to turn a lesson into a headline. A young man knelt on the curb, blood on his sleeve, pride leaking out slower than the wound. He wasn't dying. That was intentional. Dead men don't carry messages. The men around him weren't strangers. They were familiar faces wearing unfamiliar confidence, standing straighter than they'd earned, talking louder than they should have. I stepped out of the car. The noise dropped in layers, first the shouting, then the whispers, then the phone sliding back into pockets. Nobody told them to be quiet, they remembered how. I walked to the young man first, looked him over. He tried to stand. I stopped him with 2 fingers. Sit, I said. You've already proven enough. He nodded, eyes burning with a mix of pain and embarrassment. That combination is dangerous if you don't shape it early. Then I turned. The man who stepped forward wasn't the future I just met, but he was close enough to feel important. Same haircut, same posture, same borrowed certainty. This didn't have to happen, he said. That's never true, I replied. It always has to happen. Question is who learns. He smiled, thought he was calm, thought the crowd was on his side. People are tired of waiting, he said. They want movement. Movement without direction is a stampede, I said, and stampedes crush their own. A murmur ran through the onlookers. Not agreement, recognition. You think you still control this, he said, but look around. I did, faces uncertain, eyes calculating, nobody reaching for anything, nobody stepping closer either. This isn't control, I said. This is testing boundaries. I stepped closer to him, close enough that he could hear my voice without effort. You hurt one of mine to see if I'd show up, I said. I did. He lifted his chin, and now you know the answer, I continued. The question is what you do with it. He hesitated. That hesitation spread. Men shifted their feet. The crowd leaned back just enough to pretend they weren't part of it anymore. You want a future, I said quietly. Here's the rule. You don't build it by bleeding Harlem in public. He opened his mouth. I raised a hand. Second rule, I added, you don't mistake silence for permission. I turned away from him. That mattered more than anything I could have said. Take him to the hospital, I told Nat. No sirens. Then I walked back to the car. Behind me, nobody followed. Nobody spoke, but I felt it. The recalculation, the disappointment, the quiet anger of men who'd hoped for a different ending. As the door closed and the engine rolled, I knew this wasn't finished. I'd answered their question. I'd set a boundary. Now they'd ask a harder one, not whether I'd show up, but how far I'd go. The next time, they decided. To make an example, they didn't strike back that night. That was the tell. When men lose in public, the smart ones retreat into planning. Loud revenge is for amateurs. The real danger comes when things look normal again. By morning, word reached me from 3 directions at once. Banks tightening credit, unions reevaluating agreements. A city councilman suddenly forgetting old favors. No violence, no threats, just doors closing softly. They're starving the roots, Nat said. Yes, I replied, because they finally understand the trunk won't fall. That afternoon, the young man from the meeting, the almost successor, made his move. Not loud, not public, he called a sit-down. Invited men who mattered just enough to feel important. Framed it as concern, stability, the future. I was invited. That took nerve. I arrived late on purpose. The room went still when I walked in. He stood up fast, smile ready, confidence rehearsed. Glad you came, he said. I came to listen, I replied. That's what men do when they're deciding who survives. He swallowed, he spoke well. I'll give him that, talked about efficiency, reduced attention, cleaner systems, no theatrics, no old grudges. When he finished, the room waited for me. I didn't raise my voice. You're not wrong, I said. You're just early. Confusion flickered across faces. You think this city stays alive because it's clean. I continued. It stays alive because it remembers who paid when nobody else would. I looked around the table. You don't replace memory with ambition, I said. You inherit it. Silence. That's when I did the thing they didn't expect. I stood. I'm stepping back, I said. The room inhaled hard. Not today, I added. Not tomorrow, but soon. Eyes widened, hearts raced. I'll decide how, I continued, and who stands when I do. The young man looked stunned. He thought he'd won. That was my final lesson to him, because when kings choose the moment, they choose the ending too. The fallout was immediate. Some men panicked. Some celebrated too early. A few revealed themselves by moving before they were invited to. That's how I narrowed the field. Over the next weeks, I spoke quietly to the ones who mattered. Not promises, not threats, truth. This doesn't belong to you, I told them. It belongs to Harlem. By the time the young man realized what was happening, it was already done. Support drifted away. Meetings stopped returning his calls. Doors opened slower for him. He came to see me one last time. No entourage, no confidence left to borrow. I thought you were giving it to me, he said. I gave you a test, I replied. You failed it by rushing. He looked down, older now, humbled. What happens to me? He asked. That depends, I said. Do you want to learn or disappear? He chose learning. That mattered. The pressure downtown eased. The money flowed again. The city settled into a new rhythm that felt familiar because it was designed to. I didn't announce anything. Didn't celebrate. I just stopped being everywhere. And somehow everything still worked. That's when I knew it was time. On a quiet morning, I walked Harlem alone. No car, no shadows. Store owners nodded. Kids waved. Old men watched from stoops with knowing eyes. They felt it even if they couldn't name it. Power doesn't vanish, it relocates. By the time the city understood I'd stepped fully aside, nothing collapsed. No wars, no chaos, no blood to mark the change. That was the victory. Later that evening, I sat on the terrace, drink untouched, city breathing below me like it always had. Whispers asked the final question. You ever miss it? I smiled. I didn't leave, I said. I just stopped needing to be seen. Somewhere downtown, men were still chasing control. Somewhere uptown, Harlem kept moving. And the crown, it stayed right where it belonged. Not on a head, but woven into the streets. The memory and the quiet understanding that some kings don't fall, they decide when the game ends. Years later, the city still told the story wrong. They said I retired, said time caught up, said the game moved on without me. That's how you know a legend worked. I sat most mornings near a park bench nobody paid attention to. Same bench, same hour, coffee warm, newspaper folded. Men walked past carrying pieces of a system they never saw being built. Every so often, someone young would stop too close, linger too long, ask a question that sounded innocent but was. "You're him, aren't you?" One finally asked. I looked at him, clean shoes, sharp eyes, hunger trying to disguise itself as curiosity. "Him who?" I said. "The man who used to run things." I smiled. "You ever notice," I asked, "how the street still knows when to be quiet?" He frowned, listened, realized. Somewhere down the block a deal ended without shouting. Somewhere else a problem dissolved without violence. Somewhere else someone chose patience instead of proving a point. The boy nodded slowly. "I think I understand," he said. "No," I replied gently. "You think you're close." He walked away lighter than he arrived. That mattered. As the sun dipped, a car passed once. Didn't slow. Didn't need to. Power doesn't announce itself when it's done right, and Harlem kept breathing. That was always the goal, because kings who chase the crown lose it. Kings who build the ground it rests on never have to ask, who's in control?